So I was dating this guy, Brent. This was my first really serious relationship, like the kind where you start thinking about the future and meeting each other's families and all that. I was completely head over heels for this man, and I thought he felt the same way about me. Brent had this thing about Vegas. He was obsessed with it. Every time we talked about travel or fun weekend ideas, he'd bring up Vegas. He'd scroll through Instagram looking at all these fancy hotel posts and expensive restaurant photos, talking about how amazing it would be to do a real Vegas trip someday. His birthday was coming up in March, and I wanted to do something special for him. This was going to be our first big milestone together, and I was so excited to show him how much he meant to me. I started planning this elaborate Vegas weekend, the works. I spent weeks researching everything. I wanted it to be perfect. I booked us a room at the Bellagio with the fountain view because he'd mentioned how cool that would be. I made reservations at this steakhouse he'd been talking about for months, the one with the dry-aged beef and the crazy wine list. And the big surprise? A helicopter tour over the Strip. The helicopter thing was his dream. He'd mentioned it probably 50 times, always saying how incredible it would be to see Vegas from the air. It cost $800 for both of us, but seeing his face light up when I told him about it? Totally worth it. The whole weekend cost me $3,000 after flights, hotel, meals, and activities. But I was making good money at my job, I'd been saving up, and I wanted to spoil the man I loved for his birthday. This felt like what people in serious relationships did for each other. Friday night when we checked in, Brent went absolutely crazy taking photos of our room. He was posting everything to his Instagram stories. The fountain view, the fancy bathroom, the champagne I'd ordered for the room. He kept talking about how this was the life, and how amazing everything was. At dinner that night, he ordered the most expensive cut on the menu without even looking at the price. 2 bottles of wine. He was filming himself cutting into this massive steak, posting it all over social media with the restaurant's location tagged. I was just happy seeing him so excited and having such a good time. Saturday morning was the helicopter tour, and you guys, this man was like a kid in a candy store. He spent the entire 20-minute flight filming himself with the Vegas skyline behind him. The pilot actually had to tell him twice to keep his seatbelt fastened because he kept trying to get better angles for his videos. Here's the thing that should have been a red flag, but I was too in love to notice. He didn't tag me in a single post from the entire weekend. Not one. All these photos and videos of our romantic getaway, and it was like I didn't even exist. But I told myself he just wanted to keep our relationship private or whatever. Saturday night, we hit the casino, and that's where things started getting weird. Brent lost $400 at blackjack pretty quickly, then kept asking me for more cash. I gave him another $200 because I figured it was his birthday weekend and he deserved to have fun. Then he started buying rounds of drinks for random people at the bar, using my credit card. When I suggested maybe we should head back to the room and spend some time together, he told me to stop being controlling, for wanting to spend time with my boyfriend on his birthday weekend that I'd planned and paid for. But the real shit show happened Sunday night. We met up with his college friends at this bar downtown for Seth's birthday roast. Seth was getting married soon, and they'd planned this whole roast thing where people would get up and make jokes about him. It seemed like harmless fun. Brent had been drinking since noon that day. His friends Simon and Ricky were already pretty drunk when we got there. They'd rented out the back room and set up a microphone for people to take turns roasting Seth. At first, it was actually funny. People were making jokes about Seth's terrible haircuts in college, how he texts his fiancée every 10 minutes, normal friend group stuff. Everyone was laughing, Seth was taking it well, good vibes all around. Then Brent grabbed the microphone. I'll never forget what happened next as long as I live. Hold up, I got something to say about desperate women, he announced into the microphone, looking directly at me. This desperate woman thinks buying me shit makes her special. Fake Paris helicopter rides and overpriced steak. She treats me like her little purse dog. The room erupted in laughter. Simon was recording the whole thing on his phone. I was sitting there in complete shock, feeling like I was going to throw up. Brent pulled the helicopter tour tickets from his wallet and waved them above his head like trophies. Helicopter passes! Like I'm some basic tourist. My ex took me on private jets to actual destinations, not tourist traps for idiots with more money than sense. The laughter got even louder. Ricky stood up and raised his beer like he was making a toast. Bro, just dump her already. And then Brent said the thing that will haunt me forever. After she pays for Simon's bachelor party next month, why waste a good ATM? A good ATM. A good ATM. These men were treating me like I was some kind of joke, some pathetic woman who throws money at men for attention. And my boyfriend, the man I loved, the man I'd just spent $3,000 on for his birthday, was leading the charge. I stood up, walked over to where Brent was standing, and took the microphone from his hands. You're right about one thing, I said into the microphone, looking directly at Brent. Dogs are loyal. You're more like a parasite. And parasites always crawl back on their knees when their host cuts them off. I set the microphone on the nearest table and walked out of that bar with every ounce of dignity I had left. Brent followed me to the parking lot, suddenly sober and stumbling over apologies. But I was done. I got in my car and drove home alone. He took an Uber back to his place that night. Monday morning, he texted me asking if I was still mad, like I was overreacting to some minor disagreement. Tuesday, he called twice. I didn't answer. Wednesday, he showed up at my office with grocery store flowers and gas station coffee, trying to apologize. I told security I didn't want to see him. By Friday, he was leaving these pathetic voicemails about how drunk he was, how his friends pressured him into the joke, how he never meant any of it. He promised to pay me back for Vegas and take me somewhere nice to make up for everything. The voicemails got longer and more desperate each day. 2 weeks later, he was still calling. He left this message about Simon's bachelor party coming up, asking if we could talk about it. He mentioned that deposits had already been made based on my previous agreement to help with expenses. Previous agreement. I had never agreed to pay for anyone's bachelor party, but apparently Brent had been telling his friends that I would. 3 weeks after Vegas, this man showed up at my apartment building at 11 p.m. on a Thursday night. My security guard called up to ask if I wanted to see him. I could see him through my window pacing back and forth on the sidewalk like a lost dog. He looked exactly like what he was, a parasite who just realized his free ride was over. I told security not to let him up. I watched him pace for 20 minutes before he finally left. He called me 6 times that night. I didn't answer any of them. Turns out Simon's bachelor party was real. And the deposits Brent had mentioned were real too. Simon had been texting me directly asking about payment plans, because Brent had promised his friends a weekend they couldn't afford on their own. This man had been planning to use me as his personal ATM for his friends' entertainment, and when I refused to play along, suddenly I was the crazy ex who couldn't take a joke. But I wasn't done with Brent yet. Not even close. He wanted to humiliate me in front of his friends and then expect me to keep funding his lifestyle. He was about to learn exactly what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you. Stay tuned for update 1, because this story is just getting started. First update. The response to my last post was insane. Some of you called me savage, others said I should have dumped his ass way sooner, and honestly, you're alright. Shout out to whoever said parasites always show their true nature when the money stops flowing. You nailed it. So here's what happened after I left Brent pacing outside my building like a lost puppy. The very next morning, Friday, my phone started buzzing at 6 a.m. Not just calls, this fool was texting me paragraphs. Long, desperate essays about how he was going through something and how his friends bring out the worst in him. He swore up and down that the Vegas weekend meant everything to him and that he was planning to surprise me with something special to show his appreciation. I screenshotted every single message but didn't respond to any of them. Then Simon started blowing up my phone. Apparently Brent had been telling all his friends that I was just taking time to cool off and that everything was still on track for the bachelor party. Simon was texting me about hotel preferences and asking if I wanted to upgrade their rental car to something more fun. The audacity of these grown men expecting me to fund their boys' weekend after what Brent pulled. I decided it was time for Brent and me to have a real conversation. Not these pathetic voicemails and text walls, but a face-to-face where he couldn't hide behind his phone screen. So I texted him back for the first time in over a week. We need to talk. Meet me at the coffee shop on 5th Street tomorrow at 2 p.m. He responded within 30 seconds. Yes, thank you. I'll be there. I love you so much. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. Saturday rolls around and I get to the coffee shop 15 minutes early. The second he saw me, his whole face lit up like I was his salvation. He practically ran over to my table and immediately started word-vomiting apologies before he even sat down. How sorry he was, how drunk he'd been, how his friends were jealous of what we had and were trying to sabotage us. He kept reaching across the table trying to grab my hands while I sat there stone-faced. Babe, please. You have to understand. Simon and Ricky have been giving me for months about how you spoil me. They made me feel like less of a man. I was just trying to prove something stupid and it came out all wrong. I let him ramble for a full 10 minutes. He told me how he'd been thinking about proposing soon, how he wanted to take me to meet his parents, how he'd already started looking at rings online. Rings. This man thought a few pretty words would make me forget that he called me desperate and compared me to an ATM in front of all his friends while they recorded it. Finally, I cut him off. Are you done? I just need you to know that everything I said was bullshit. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I don't deserve you, but I'm going to spend every day making this up to you. You're right. You don't deserve me. And you're definitely not going to make anything up to me. The look on his face was priceless. Pure panic. What do you mean? I mean, we're done, Brent. Completely done. Now this is where it got interesting. Instead of accepting it like a normal person, Brent completely lost his mind. His voice got louder and people started staring at us. He started listing everything he'd ever done for me, which was hilarious because the list was embarrassingly short. Apparently driving me to the airport once and helping me move a dresser up 2 flights of stairs were supposed to balance out $3,000 and public humiliation. You can't just throw away all this months over one stupid joke. I was drunk. It wasn't a joke, Brent. Jokes are funny. What you did was show everyone exactly what you think of me. That's not what I think of you. I was trying to be funny. By calling me desperate? By telling your friends I'm an ATM? By waving around the tickets I bought you like they were evidence of how pathetic I am? He started backtracking fast. Suddenly it was all about how much pressure he felt from his friends, how they were always making comments about our relationship, how he felt emasculated. He actually used the word emasculated, like his fragile ego was my responsibility to protect. But then he said something that made my blood boil. Look, Karen used to make me feel like shit about money too. She was always throwing her family's wealth in my face, making me feel small. When I met you, I thought you understood that I needed to feel like a man in this relationship. Karen, his precious ex. The same Karen he'd been stalking on Instagram and comparing me to for months. Now she was somehow the villain in his story, and I was supposed to be grateful that he let me spend my own money on him. So you decided to humiliate me in front of your friends to feel like a man? That's your solution? I wasn't trying to humiliate you. I was just, I don't know. I was drunk and stupid. You were showing off. You wanted your friends to think you had me wrapped around your finger. You wanted them to see that you could treat me like garbage and I'd still keep paying for your fun. This hit too close to home because he got quiet, like dead silent for almost a minute. Then he tried a different approach. The wounded puppy routine. Fine. You're right. I fucked up. But people make mistakes, and people who love each other work through them. If you really cared about me, you'd give me a chance to fix this. If you really cared about me, you wouldn't have done it in the first place. So that's it? All months down the drain because I said some stupid shit when I was drunk? No, Brent. All months down the drain because you've been using me for months, and I finally saw you for what you really are. He started getting aggressive then. His voice was getting louder and his arguments were getting nastier. He accused me of being stuck up, said I used money to control people, claimed I never really loved him and was just trying to buy his affection. The complete fucking audacity of this man to flip the script and make me the villain in his sob story. You know what? Maybe my friends were right about you. Maybe you are desperate. Maybe you do use your money to manipulate people because you can't get them to stay any other way. The coffee shop was dead silent. Everyone was staring at us now. I stood up, grabbed my purse, and looked down at him. You want to know what's desperate, Brent? Begging someone you just insulted to keep funding your lifestyle. That's desperate. I started to walk away, but he grabbed my arm. What about Simon's bachelor party? We already made commitments. People are counting on this. And there it was. The real reason for this whole performance. Not because he loved me or missed me or wanted to make things right. Because he needed my credit card for one more weekend. That sounds like a you problem. You can't just leave me hanging like this. I already told everyone it was handled. Then you better figure out how to handle it yourself. I walked out of that coffee shop feeling like a goddamn queen. But the story doesn't end there, because apparently Brent still didn't get the message. Sunday night, he showed up at my apartment again. This time, he brought reinforcements. Simon and Ricky were with him, and they all looked like they'd been drinking. My doorman called up and asked if I wanted to see them, and I told him absolutely not. But these idiots didn't leave. They stayed outside my building for 2 hours. I could see them from my window, taking turns trying to call me and pacing around like lost puppies. Neighbors were staring. It was embarrassing as hell. Finally, my doorman came up personally to tell me that other residents were complaining and asking if I wanted him to call the cops. I told him to give them one warning to leave, and if they didn't, then yes, call the police. That got them moving. Monday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and a dozen text messages from all 3 of them. Brent was still doing his apologetic routine, but Simon and Ricky were taking a different approach. Simon's messages were trying to convince me that Brent was going through a rough patch and that I should be more understanding. Ricky was more direct. He basically told me I was being dramatic and that guys say stupid shit when they drink, and I needed to get over it. But here's the thing that's got me absolutely raging. I found out through a mutual friend that these assholes have been telling people that I'm the crazy one, that I overreacted to a harmless joke, and that I'm holding the bachelor party hostage because I'm bitter about the breakup. They're literally spinning this like I'm the villain, like I'm some psycho ex who can't take a joke and is now trying to ruin everyone's fun out of spite. I'm about to show these boys what spite actually looks like. Stay tuned, Reddit. This is about to get really interesting. Second update. You guys, this situation has escalated in ways I never could have imagined. I'm actually shaking as I type this. So remember how my last post ended with Brent and his friends harassing me outside my building until security threatened to call the cops? Well, I thought that was rock bottom. I was wrong. Tuesday evening, I was finally feeling somewhat normal again. I'd been ignoring their constant calls and texts since Monday, and I thought maybe they were finally getting the message that I wasn't going to change my mind about the bachelor party funding. I decided to make myself a nice dinner. Pasta with some wine, loud music playing while I cooked. It felt good to be in my own space, doing normal things, trying to move on from this whole mess. I was in the kitchen stirring the sauce when I heard a noise from my living room. At first I thought it was just the neighbors or something outside, but then I heard it again, like furniture moving. I turned off the music and listened. Dead silence. Then I turned around and nearly had a heart attack. Brent was standing in my living room, going through my stuff. I immediately demanded to know how he got in. My door was locked, I had the deadbolt engaged, there was no way he should have been able to get inside. He said he came in through the fire escape window, just said it casually, like breaking into someone's apartment was completely normal. I was terrified. This man had climbed up the outside of my building and broken into my home while I was there cooking dinner. The level of violation I felt was indescribable. I told him to get out immediately, but he said he wasn't leaving until I told him the truth. I asked what truth. He'd been going through my dresser, my closet, even my bathroom cabinets, looking for evidence of another man. He was completely convinced that the only reason I'd broken up with him was because I'd been cheating and found someone better. He was looking for extra toothbrushes, men's clothes in my laundry, a second phone charger, anything that would prove another guy had been spending time in my apartment. I told him there was no other guy, that I broke up with him because he humiliated me and tried to use me for money. He didn't believe me. He was convinced that I'd been cheating, and that's why I'd suddenly turned cold and vindictive toward him. In his twisted mind, there was no way a woman would leave him unless she had someone else lined up. I told him he was being insane and needed to leave right now. That's when he got aggressive. He said he wasn't going anywhere until I admitted what I'd done and apologized for lying to him and his friends. He said he knew I'd been telling people things about him to make him look bad, and he knew there was another guy involved. When I told him he needed to leave or I was calling the police, he said go ahead. But he wasn't leaving until he got answers. He said if I tried to make him leave, maybe some of my nice things would get broken in the process. Maybe my laptop would accidentally get smashed. Maybe my TV would fall over. Accidents happen when people are upset. That's when I realized I was in serious danger. This wasn't just an angry ex. This was someone who had broken into my home and was now threatening to destroy my property if I didn't comply with his demands. I managed to grab my phone and step into the bathroom, where I quickly texted my brother Logan. Emergency. Brent broke into my apartment through window. Here now threatening me. Please come immediately. Logan lives about 20 minutes away, but he must have driven like hell because he was banging on my door 15 minutes later. When I let him in, he took one look at my face and asked where Brent was. Brent was still in the living room, and when he saw Logan, he tried to act like nothing was wrong. He greeted Logan like they were old friends and he was just visiting normally. Logan asked him how he'd gotten into the apartment. Brent tried to deflect, saying we'd been talking and working things out. Logan asked again, how did he get in? Because he knew I'd been keeping my door locked since the breakup. That's when Brent admitted he'd come in through the fire escape window. He said he just needed to talk to me and I wasn't answering his calls. Logan's face went completely dark. He told Brent that what he'd just described was breaking and entering, and that he needed to leave immediately. Brent said this was between him and me, and Logan had no right to interfere in our relationship. Logan said there was no relationship. I told Brent it was over, and he just committed a crime by breaking into my apartment. Brent started getting defensive, saying he used to contribute to rent here and still had rights. Logan asked what rights those were, since Brent's name wasn't on the lease and I'd already told him the relationship was over. Brent couldn't answer that. Logan physically grabbed Brent by the arm and walked him to the door. Brent tried to resist, saying he wasn't done talking to me, but Logan is bigger and stronger and wasn't having any of it. Logan literally pushed him out of my apartment and told him if he ever came back, if he ever contacted me again, if he ever so much as drove by my building, Logan would call the police and press charges for breaking and entering, trespassing, and harassment. Brent tried to argue from the hallway, saying Logan couldn't threaten him and that this wasn't over. Logan said it was completely over, and if Brent didn't understand that, he could explain it to the police. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought maybe having someone physically remove him from my apartment would make Brent realize how far over the line he'd gone. I was wrong. Again. Thursday morning, my coworker Jill came up to me looking concerned and showed me her phone, and I swear to God I almost fainted when I saw what was on her screen. These absolute idiots had made a TikTok about me. I'm talking a full production, guys. Simon's account, with a title like, When Good Men Get Destroyed by Ungrateful Women. And it was using my face, my photos, my life, to create this completely fictional story about how I'm some cheating, gold-digging girl who destroyed an innocent man. They'd taken photos from our relationship, pictures I thought were private moments between us, and edited them with text overlays and dramatic music to make it look like Brent was this devoted boyfriend working multiple jobs to support me while I was this cold, materialistic who used him and threw him away for someone richer. None of it was true, not a single word. But it looked convincing. They'd crafted this whole narrative about modern women being selfish and disloyal, and they were using my face as their poster child for everything wrong with women today. The video had over 5,000 views, and I was hyperventilating reading the comments. Hundreds of people calling me a gold digger, saying I looked like the type to do this trash. People were sharing stories about their own crazy exes and using me as validation for their misogyny. But here's what really sent me into a panic. People in the comments were saying things like, someone should make a compilation of women like this, and this needs to go on YouTube, and she should be famous for being such a terrible person. I was terrified that this was going to spread beyond TikTok. What if someone took this and put it in one of those YouTube compilations about crazy exes? What if it ended up on Reddit or Twitter or Facebook? What if my coworkers saw it, or my family? The thought of my parents seeing this video, of them thinking even for a second that any of this might be true, made me want to throw up. What if my boss saw it? What if future employers found it when they Googled my name? These idiots were trying to destroy my entire reputation with lies, and there were thousands of people believing every word of it. I was shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone. Jill had to sit me down and get me a glass of water because I looked like I was about to pass out. I was done. I looked up Simon's family online, found his parents' address, his mom's Facebook, his dad's workplace. These people needed to know what their son was doing with my photos and my life, and they needed to know right now. Friday afternoon, I drove to their house. It was in a nice suburb, well-maintained lawn, the kind of neighborhood where reputation matters. When Simon's mom answered the door, I introduced myself politely and explained that I needed to speak with her about a video her son had posted online using my photos without permission. I showed her the TikTok on my phone and explained how Simon, along with my ex-boyfriend and their friend, had been creating this video about me after I refused to pay for their bachelor party. Mrs. Anderson's face went white as she watched the video. She asked if Simon had really made this. I confirmed that he had and explained that using someone's photos without permission to create false narratives could be considered defamation, and I was considering legal action. She immediately called Simon on FaceTime, right there in her living room with me sitting next to her. When Simon's face appeared on the screen and he saw me sitting next to his mother, he looked absolutely terrified. His mom asked him what this video was about and why he was using this young woman's photos to make up stories about her. Simon tried to explain that it wasn't what it looked like, that I'd ruined their friend's bachelor party, and they were just trying to show people what really happened. His mom said she didn't care what happened with any party. She wanted to know if he'd used my photos without permission to make up lies about me cheating on my boyfriend. Simon admitted they were trying to show people what kind of person I really was. His mom asked if he was making up stories about me being unfaithful and materialistic using pictures from my personal life. By this point, Simon's dad had come into the room, and when he understood what was happening, he was even more furious than his wife. He told Simon to take that video down immediately and call his friends to tell them to delete any other videos about me. Simon tried to argue, saying they had a right to tell their side of the story. His dad said they had no right to use my photos to make up lies about me, and if Simon didn't delete the video right now, he could find his own place to live and pay for his own car insurance. Within an hour, Simon's TikTok was deleted and I had a text apology from him. But you guys, I have a feeling this still isn't over. These three have shown me that they're willing to break into my home, threaten my property, and use my image to create fake stories about me. They're escalating every time I shut down one of their tactics. I'm documenting everything now, taking screenshots, keeping records. If they try anything else, I'm going straight to the police with everything I have. But part of me is scared about what they might try next. Because if Brent is willing to break into my apartment, what else is he willing to do? Last update. I cannot believe how this whole situation ended. I'm still processing everything that happened, but I promised you all an update and this story is finally over. First, thank you to everyone who commented on my last post. The support has been incredible. And to those of you who said I should go to the police about the break-in, I tried. I really did. 2 weeks ago, after Logan kicked Brent out of my apartment, I went to the police station with photos of my wrists and a detailed report about him breaking in through the fire escape. I was ready to press charges for breaking and entering, trespassing, all of it. But here's the thing about apartment buildings. Security cameras don't cover every angle. The side of my building where the fire escape is located? No cameras. None. The police said without video evidence or witnesses, it would be his word against mine about how he got into the apartment. They took my report seriously, don't get me wrong. They said they'd talk to him and document everything. But pressing charges? They couldn't guarantee anything would stick without solid proof he'd actually broken in rather than just being let in. I was frustrated as hell, but I figured at least now there was an official record of his behavior. If he tried anything else, the pattern would be documented. For about 10 days after that, things were relatively quiet. No more TikToks, no more showing up at my building, no more break-ins. I started to think maybe, they'd finally gotten the message and would leave me alone. I should have known better. Last Saturday, I was at the mall with my friend Yasmin. We went to high school together and try to catch up every few weeks. We were just walking around, shopping, catching up on life, when we decided to grab some food at the food court. We got our orders and were looking for a place to sit when I saw them. Brent was at a table near the back with some woman I didn't recognize. At first, I only saw her from behind. Long, dark hair, laughing at something he was saying. He was being all flirty with her, playing with her hair, trying to tickle her sides. The whole gross routine he used to do with me when we first started dating. My first thought was good for him. Maybe now he'll leave me alone. My second thought was wondering who the hell would want to date him after knowing what kind of person he was. Then the woman turned around to grab something from her purse, and I nearly dropped my fucking tray. It was Samantha. Ricky's girlfriend of like 2 years. I grabbed Yasmin's arm and whispered that we needed to sit where we could see them, but they couldn't see us. Yasmin asked what was wrong, and I pointed them out, explaining who they were. Yasmin's eyes went wide when I told her that was my ex with his friend's girlfriend. We sat down and I just watched them for a few minutes, trying to process what I was seeing. This wasn't friendly conversation between friends. This was full-on romantic thing. He had his arm around her. She was leaning into him. He kissed her cheek, and she was giggling like a teenager. Then I remembered my phone and started recording. I got about 3 minutes of video. Him feeding her food from his plate, her sitting basically in his lap, more kissing, the whole disgusting display. Then they got up, held hands, and walked out of the food court together like a couple. I was sitting there, stunned. Absolutely stunned. Here was Brent, the guy who'd been calling me a cheater and breaking into my apartment looking for evidence of another man, and he was the one running around with his friend's girlfriend behind everyone's back. The hypocrisy was unreal. This man had been so convinced that I must be cheating because that's exactly what he was doing. He was projecting his own guilty behavior onto me. Yasmin was just as shocked as I was. She kept asking if I was sure it was Ricky's girlfriend, if maybe they'd broken up and I didn't know. But I follow Samantha on Instagram. She'd posted a photo with Ricky just 3 days ago talking about their anniversary dinner. I spent the rest of the weekend thinking about what to do with this information. Part of me wanted to just forget about it and move on with my life. These people had caused me enough stress and drama. But another part of me kept thinking about Ricky. Yeah, he'd been a complete asshole to me with that TikTok and all the harassment. But he was also being betrayed by 2 people he trusted. His best friend and his girlfriend were carrying on behind his back, and he had no idea. Did he deserve to know? Did I have any obligation to tell him? I was still debating this when the decision was made for me. Wednesday evening, I was at home watching Netflix when my phone started ringing. Brent's number. He was calling to gloat. Apparently, word had gotten around our mutual social circles that I'd tried to file a police report about the break-in and that it hadn't gone anywhere. He was calling to tell me how stupid I was for thinking the cops would take my side, how I'd embarrassed myself by trying to get him in trouble when I had no proof of anything. He was laughing about it. Actually laughing about breaking into my apartment and terrorizing me. Then he started in on the usual thing. How I was crazy, how I'd overreacted to everything, how his friends all thought I was psycho and he was lucky to be rid of me. But then he said something that made my blood boil. You know what the funny thing is? I'm already doing better without you. Found someone who actually appreciates me, someone who doesn't try to control me with money, someone who knows how to treat a man right. The smugness in his voice was unbearable. Here he was, bragging about his affair while calling me crazy for being upset about his behavior. I found myself laughing. Actually laughing. He asked what was so funny. I told him I had something for him. Something special. Something he really deserved. He got suspicious then, asking what I meant. I said he'd find out at midnight, that he was going to get exactly what was coming to him. He tried to get me to explain, but I just hung up. At 11:58 p.m., I sent the video. Not to Brent, to Ricky. I sent it with a simple message. Thought you should know. I'm sorry you're finding out this way. Then I turned off my phone and went to bed. I didn't turn my phone back on until noon the next day, and when I did, it was chaos. 40 missed calls, 35 text messages, voicemails from Brent, from Simon, from Ricky, even from Samantha. Apparently, Ricky had gone straight to Brent's apartment after getting the video. I don't know all the details of what happened, but from the voicemails, it was clear there had been a major confrontation. Ricky was devastated. His voicemail to me was him crying, thanking me for telling him, saying he had no idea and asking if I knew how long it had been going on. Brent's voicemails were pure rage. He was screaming about how I'd ruined his life, how I was a vindictive, how I destroyed his friendship with Ricky over my own petty revenge. Simon's messages were trying to play peacemaker, saying everyone needed to calm down and work this out like adults. Samantha's messages were begging me not to tell anyone else, saying it wasn't what it looked like, that she and Ricky were having problems, and she'd made a mistake. But the most interesting messages were the ones that came later in the day. Apparently, after confronting Brent, Ricky had gone home and confronted Samantha. She'd confessed that the affair had been going on for over a month, since before the Vegas trip, since before Brent and I had even broken up, which meant Brent had been cheating on me while I was paying for his birthday weekend, while I was planning nice things for us, while he was calling me desperate and clingy behind my back. The timeline was becoming clear. Brent had been having an affair with his best friend's girlfriend, probably felt guilty about it, and projected all that guilt onto me by becoming convinced that I must be cheating too. When I broke up with him, he couldn't accept that it was because of his own shitty behavior. He had to believe there was another man involved because that's exactly what he was doing. By Thursday evening, their entire friend group was in chaos. Ricky had broken up with Samantha and wasn't speaking to Brent. Simon was trying to stay neutral, but was clearly uncomfortable with the whole situation. Other friends were taking sides, asking questions, demanding to know who knew what and when. Friday morning, I got one final call from Brent. He asked if I was happy now that I'd destroyed everything. I told him I hadn't destroyed anything. I'd just shown people the truth about what he was doing. He said it wasn't supposed to happen like this, that things with Samantha just got complicated and he never meant for anyone to get hurt. I asked him how long he'd been planning to cheat on me. He said it wasn't like that feelings just developed over time and he didn't know how to handle it. I asked if he was cheating on me during the Vegas trip. Long silence. Then he admitted that he and Samantha had been talking for weeks before Vegas, that they'd kissed for the first time the night before we left for the trip. So there it was. While I was planning his birthday weekend, booking helicopter tours, making dinner reservations, spending $3,000 to make him happy, he was already involved with someone else. The Vegas humiliation, the breaking and entering, the TikTok campaigns, all of it. It was coming from a man who had been betraying me from the beginning and was too much of a coward to just break up with me honestly. I told him that if he'd just been honest from the start, none of this would have happened. If he'd just said he had feelings for someone else instead of taking my money and then humiliating me in public, we could have ended things civilly. I told him I didn't care about his apologies anymore. The time for apologies was 2 months ago when he could have made different choices. Then I hung up and blocked his number for good. It's been a week since all of this went down, and I'm finally starting to feel like I can move on with my life. Ricky and Samantha are done. She moved out of their shared apartment and is apparently staying with friends while looking for her own place. Sometimes the trash really does take itself out. You just have to be patient enough to let it happen. It's finally over, and I can honestly say I'm happier now than I've been in months. Reddit, you're the best.